I love Cinderellas, and I think this piece is so full of magnificent things, but somehow it's got crowded out by, I mean, of course, West Side Story, but also On the Town, which came previously. But it was almost an accident the piece got written in the first place. There was something fell out, and they were asked to put a show together very quickly, and it was put together in a stunning 5 weeks. You can't believe that. Probably the book is a little bit creaky now, as it is in a lot of the earlier musicals, the Gershwin musicals. But the music and the libretto that goes with the music is just, I mean, it's vintage stuff. It's hilarious, it's beautiful, it's touching. And as ever, he just reminded that Bernstein could write any type of music, whatever it is. Oh, write South American music, yes. Write the latest jazz, yes. Write a sentimental ditty. Write something that works with the words, why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why did I ever leave Ohio? He could do anything. And I must say, when we played it again, it was a great Christmas present for all of us, because also it suits this orchestra so well. Of course, they knew him, they have him in their blood, but because they play a lot of music which is jazz inflected, this is no problem. This style, they just go, oh yeah, oh, it's this. Fine, oh good, we can be brilliant and no one is going to ask us to be kind of darker. No, we had a blast, and a great cast of people. It was a shame it was over so fast. I'm delighted that the recording is now here to remember it. Just a little bit, but I mean, a lot is what he was taking from what was there. So a lot of the jazz music was stuff he'd already been playing around with, like, as is in Prelude, Fugue and Riffs, for instance. The ballet at the Village Vortex, which is a really kind of raunchy jazz number near the end, yeah, that stinks of West Side Story, and in some ways it goes even further into the kind of Bernstein filth, if I could. And I mean that in a sharing, caring way, as Dame Edna would say. Yeah, when he wants to write that real down heavy stuff, boy, can he do it well.
Stuffy, provincial, thank heaven we're free.
Oh, completely. I mean, it's absolutely him, and he's just, it obviously appealed to him. He obviously had a great time doing it. He didn't have time to torture himself about it as he did over a lot of the pieces. It was done kind of on the fly, and so you see him very, very directly. But actually, at the beginning 8 bars couldn't be anybody else. So there's lots of places where you think, yeah, that is utterly him. And this ability to, as he would say, to turn on a dime and write whatever was needed. But I always had this feeling that he was tremendously protective about his own music and rather sad that it wasn't more widely appreciated, which is, it's hard to think that, of course, West Side Story was immediately acclaimed as probably the greatest musical of all time. But all the rest of his music, he felt like kind of children that hadn't been appreciated. I know when he wanted to meet me, it was because he was thrilled I'd been conducting Prelude, Fugue and Riffs a lot, which was a piece that actually was not so well known kind of 40 years ago when I started to do it. And he was just almost pathetically grateful that people actually thought of him as a composer as well as a conductor. And I hope he'd be happy now, yeah, wherever he might be, because now the thing is, with a little distance to the music, it doesn't matter whether it was absolutely up-to-date avant-garde music. The fact that West Side Story and Stockhausen's Gruppen are written basically at the same time. And they are as different as can be, and they're both great pieces. And now it doesn't matter that this seemed to be music from another culture or another time. It's just great music. I never met him.
You never met him?
We never got... The dinner we were going to have didn't happen for various reasons, and then I never had the chance. I was always scared to go backstage, because normally after his performances, I went to hear Mahler performances, and I could hardly deal with myself, let alone meeting somebody like this. You know, so I never met Carlos Kleiber either. Yeah, it's true. I'm an idiot. I just should have gone, but I didn't. I preferred to learn from it and admire it and not deal further. So, but I would have loved to have had. I would have loved to have had the experience of seeing what this astonishing, vibrant, generous, impossible person must have been like.
That's a sure way to lose a man. A sure way to...
I suppose the first thing, I must have already heard West Side Story, but I think I was 8 or 9, and my parents took me to the show in London, and I was just jumping out of my seat. I must have been right up against the pit most of the time, watching the percussionist. This is all I wanted to do in my life, was actually to be a percussionist in West Side Story. I saw him on the television a lot. He was on the, on the old BBC a lot. I remember him rehearsing and conducting a performance of Shostakovich Fifth with the LSO, and, yelling at everybody in his, yes, almost encouraging way. The Harvard lectures, of course. He seemed to be everywhere. And I suppose as a kid also, I just took all these children's programs, and also things like The Joy of Music, the series which he did for the wider public. I just took it for granted that this is what a musician did. I didn't realize how extraordinary that was, and that basically he'd written it all himself. That there were 1 or 2 assistants to help, but now we'd have thousands of script people doing that. He just did it. That was a really extraordinary man.
Go home, go west, go back where you came from.
I just don't know. I hope it went a bit wilder.
Yeah,
the BCMG is really good, but I did listen to it, and it did seem rather polite to me. On the other hand, it was basically, it was done almost straight in sessions. We had the real advantage in this of actually doing it in concert performances. And perhaps, perhaps some things get better with experience and time. But what was fascinating was it was so obvious that this orchestra has that kind of music in their blood. That it was, oh yes, we do this, bang, off we go. And all this unbelievable group of saxes who play for John Wilson's orchestra as well. What a group of stars. And no, we just had the best time. And there's this kind of Errol Flynn thing about the LSO, this thing of, right, run up the gangplank, just be extreme and extraordinary and intense. That's something I love about them. And of course, these kind of pieces are meat and drink for them. No, not necessarily at all. The Third Symphony I have, that's a problem for me. I don't mind people wearing their heart on their sleeves. There's a point when you get the liver and the intestines on the sleeve as well, that there's a point where he is too much. I mean, at least for me, and he was too much in life. And reading now his daughter Jamie's book about it, she could not have loved him more, and he could not have been more embarrassing at the same time. And I know that's what parents are supposed to be, but like everything else, he was more of everything. So I think that's true of the pieces as well. But there's all kinds of interesting, also kind of other dance pieces which are less frequently played that I find very interesting. So who knows in the next years.
Look at me now, 4 years of